Hi, I'm Becca and welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to show you how to make my all-seeing eye necklace. I've done a couple of other colourways of it, which I'll just show you now. So this was the first one that I did, and this was using Paradox cane, but just using the original colours from the video that I watched from. So it's a purple and green one, and then this is using the same Paradox cane, but it's a different way of creating your eye. So with these ones I've just used the standard cane, but whereas with this one I used the rainbow cane that I did a video on previously before I did the boomerang beads. So if you've not seen that one, I'll pop it in the description box for you so you can go check it out, and I'll also list the boomerang beads video as well, so you know, you can see how to make those ones as well. I've used some polymer clay, barrel beads and some lentil beads and some crystals and these little gold polymer clay beads as well, and then all my fringe has just been just regular beads and crystals and things. So it's really easy to do. It is a bit time consuming putting all your pendant together. That's probably the most time with the piece, you know, like it takes you a while to do it because there's bead embroidery in it even, but as you can see, it's got a big impact. So let's get started and I'll show you how. So we're going to start off by doing our pendant, and I'm just going to create a bezel around the main part of it, and this is what I showed you in the video. I'll link it below if you've not already seen it. And then you're just going to need some size 10 seed beads and something that's just a little bit smaller. I don't know what size these ones are because I've had them donkey's years. So I just need something for the last round that's a little bit smaller than a size 10. So this is what I've got. I'm going round with gold, but depending on whatever colour your pendant is what you decide to go with. I'm wanting something to lighten this up a fair bit, because when it's baked it's gone a little bit darker than it was before, so I'm wanting to bring the colour back out in it. So I've just got a piece of stiff felt, and I'm just going to, I've marked it from corner to corner as you can see, and that's just so that I can get it lined up properly when I'm adding other pieces to it. Now I've got some E6000, I'm just going to put some on the back. We are beading around it, it'll hold it in place, but I want to have some stick to the back of it just so that it doesn't move around constantly when we're first starting. And then just pick your way that you're wanting to line it up. So I'm going to go there, and then that will dry. So I'm going to start off with the size 10s. I've got them in a nice gold. Now usually I would use a thread that was the same sort of colour as the beads that I'm using, but so that you can see what I'm doing, I'm using a brighter colour. So I've gone with a nice red, it sort of pairs up well with the rainbow cane that I've made the pendant with. So I've got a nice long bit of thread on my beading needle, and I've knotted it at the end. So I'm just going to start off with this way, so I'm coming up from the bottom. I like to sort of start off on a general point, so I'm going to start off here where I've marked. I'm just going to do a locking stitch just to make sure that I've got the fibres and it's not going to come off at all. You find when you're first starting out with it, your thread gets on your nerves because you're having to pull your arm out over and over and over again, and the shorter it gets the easier it will get, but there we go. So I'm just going to take 4 of my seed beads, I'm going to pick it up. Don't want to go on, I think it's because I've got a wonky needle, but it's still got plenty of life in it, so I'm using it. So I've got my 4 seed beads. I'm just going to slide those down and hold them up against the side of the pendant. Then I'm just going to go through the felt and down to the bottom. Just keep that thread taut and it will hold them in place until you get through, and then they've got lined up. Then we're going to come back up through the middle of those 4. So in between beads 2 and 3. And of course my fingers don't want to work properly. Oh, excuse my phone going off. And we just come up in between it, and then we're going to go through the last 2 beads, and that will hold them in place. And then we're going to do that all the way around. Just keep pushing the last 4 backwards. So you just need to pick up 4 more and repeat that all the way around until we get back round to the other end, and then I'll show you what to do. So if you want to do that bit, come back and then I'll show you what's next. I've gone all the way around now, and there's just this little gap here. Now you might not have enough room for the full 4 seed beads if you've been doing it in 4s like me. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to give it a test run to see whether if it will do. And we might just do it. Let's just have a take it all the way down to the bottom. If you can't, you're best off keeping them in even numbers. No, there's too much there. So I'm going to take the 2 off, so I'm keeping it in an even bead count, and you'll see why in a minute when we're on to the next bit. So just take those 2 off. I'm just going to go down like we've done before. And come back up through the beginning of those. Now there is that little bit of a gap there, but I'm going to try and close it up with these ones that are here as well. So, whoop. The thing we have in long thread, it gets caught on stuff a lot easier. So I'm going through there, and then I'm just going to come through these few here, and then that will bring them round, because we're going to go around now into the second pass through, and we'll need that little bit of wiggle room just to you know, get our needle through anyway. So that's just that. I mean, once you're done, you can put a little bit more glue around there, but you won't really need to once it's all finished. So what I'm going to do now, so where I've come up, I'm just going to take 1 seed bead, so if you can see where I'm going, and I'm going to go back down through where we've come, skip a bead, and then up the next one. So back up the one that you've just come through, so the bead that you've put on will stop it from going through. And if we can get it on, there we go. So I've come through, not the next one but the one after. Just leave them a little bit loose to flop to the side, and then we're just going to do that all the way around. So we're going to go back through where we've come through, then miss a bead, and then put the next one on. I'm going to do that all the way around until we get to the beginning again, and I'll show you what to do. I've got round back to the beginning again. I've just got my last one to put in, so I'm just going to take my seed bead as normal, and then I'm going to come back up where we put that first seed bead in. So you can see I'm coming back here, and I'm coming up to where this one, that one there, we're going to go through that one now. So come back up, and then we're just going to pick up that original seed bead that we put in, and we've come through it now, and we're just going to pick up 1 more bead and go through the next one. And that's what we're going to do, going all the way around. Now, because this is quite a dimensional pendant I'm making, I'm probably going to have to do another 1 or 2 rows of this, but this is all that we're going to do to put the bezel on around the pendant. So let's just put it on there, and I can hold it up, and we're joining up that gap that we've created in between all these ones. We're creating up, and it will pull it up so they will stand on top of each other once we've done. So again, I'm going to go around, all the way around, and then I'm going to join it up the same way as we did the first row, and then I'm going to do another row like I've done, just going round and then adding 1 in between each, and like every other one, and then filling it in again. So once I've done that, I'll come back and we can crack on with it on the next stage. I've just got the third row finished, but I've not got much thread left, so I wanted to show you how to start up with another piece of thread. It's just not long enough for me to finish the piece, so I'd rather do it now. So just once you've done your round, just give it a good tug and make sure that you're nipping all the beads together that you've just put in that last round. I'm only going to be putting one more row in after this, because this is sort of where the doming finishes, sort of, and that's where I'm wanting to go, so I'll do one more round, but I'm going to put those smaller ones in between. But what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to come back down to underneath and fasten this off. Just pop a couple of knots in. So I get further beading on a few hours sleep. There we go. And this is just to make sure that it doesn't come out at all if it gets knocked or anything. So I'll be putting some other beads around the edge as well, but that's all to come. So I'm going to take that off now. Now, sometimes I like to just pop a little bit of my E6000 just on the back, just to make sure that that bit is stuck properly. So it's just a bit of insurance really, just to make sure that it doesn't come undone. And then this little bit I'll save for something else, for a smaller project, but it's just not enough for what's left to do on this one. So as you can see, I've got a big piece already threaded that's decided to tangle up now. And I can't remember if I said before, but when you're taking your beading thread, just make sure that you give it a good tug to try and pull out any of the kinks in it. Then I'm going to thread up. Now, whether if you like to put a knot on the end of your thread, or whether if you just sew into your felt, that's up to you, whatever you want to do. Okay, I'll just like to put my knot in, find a needle, and then I'm just going to come back up from the inside here, like we did on the first one, put a locking stitch in again, just to make sure that we know that it's caught the fibres. And it will stay in place. You'll come back up. So if you can't see properly when you're going to do it, just look underneath and you'll be able to see the shadow of the pendant, so you'll know whereabouts you can stick your toe. And just make sure you're coming on the inside of those rows. And then we're just going to carry on as we did before. So I'm just going to come up through one of the beads, and then I'm going to carry on doing what we've done on the other rows, but on this one we're going to use the smaller ones to go in between them. So once I've got back round and I'm ready for putting the smaller ones in, I'll come back and show you what I'm going to do. I've got all the way back round now, and as you can see, this last row I've just pushed all the beads that I've put out, so you can just see where we're going to be going. It might be a bit easier for you to understand what I'm going to do. So I've got some seed beads that are just slightly smaller than these size 10s that I've been using. I've had them quite a while and there's no label on the packet, so I can't tell you an exact number. Just for the next bit you just need something that's a little bit smaller than the ones that you've been using. If you've not got anything smaller, you can just go around and pick them all up. You'll just see your thread, so if you use a thread that matches whatever you're working with, then it shouldn't be too bad. So it's up to you whether if you want to be able to not see it, or whether if you don't mind it being in. So you just want to take your thread, so I've brought it up and I've come through the next one once I've come all the way back. So you go through the beads and up, and then just come through as though you were starting all over again. So you just want to take one of your smaller beads, and then you're just going to pick up the next one to it. So go through, and then as you pull it through, it will draw those two together. So I'm just going to do that all the way around, and then when we get to the other end it should tighten up all those beads that are sticking out at the moment, and then that's going to be my last round. So I'm going to go off camera and do that because you don't need to see me doing this repeatedly, it'll be very boring. So once I've done that I'll come back and we can do the next bit. I've had to take the beads out we're going to put in between them out because they were just a little bit too big, so it was standing up rather than pulling round. So I've just gone round, and not whether if you can see very well, but I've just got the bit of thread in between each of the last row of beads that I've done, but because it's a dark red thread and it's a fairly dark background you can't really see it all that much, so I'm alright with you being able to see it. So that's what you can do if you've not got any smaller seed beads from the ones that you've done around the bezel. So the next part is just basically connecting the last few up, and when each time that you pull it into the next one it tightens it up. So I'm just getting back to the first one. And it just pulls them all in. You just go around, and then I like to just go through again, through just a few of them just to make sure it keeps that tension. And another thing I've just realised I've not done, if you're using felt, I'm getting caught on the corners with them being pointed, so I'm just going to round them off just a little bit so it stops them from getting caught as easily. You can still get caught, but with the points it's a bit more frequent than what it is if they're rounded. So that's just a tip for you if you're using felt to bead on. Right, so pulling back round, and then we're just going to slip down through the beads down to the back. So you've gone down the underside of all the beads that you've just gone round, and then you'll pull that round, and then that will keep them all tight around it. So you've got your bezel around it now. So the next thing that I'm going to put on is some of my boomerang beads, which is a video that I've released last time. If you've not seen it, I'll put the link in the description box. So I've got a couple of the rainbow ones that I made, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to be placing them here. So one's just a little bit bigger than the other one, but that's fine because I'm going to be filling in this gap eventually. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just put a little bit of E6000 on the back of them. I'm going to be sewing them down as well, but I just like to put this added bit on just to make sure that they stay in place while I'm sewing. So it takes probably about 15-20 minutes for this to dry all together, so just have to be a bit careful when you're still sewing, because they can be a little bit loose for a while. But once it's stuck, it's stuck. It's not going to go anywhere. So just using a cocktail stick just to spread it out. If you've got one of the pointed nozzles, then you can just squeeze it where you want it to go, but I've not got that one with me at the moment. So I've got them stuck in place. So I'm going to try them nearer. Right, so I'm going to come up here. I've got a fan on in the background, so it's blowing the thread everywhere. So I'm just going to come up through at the side. And then I'm going to go through the hole that I've made. Pull it through. Oop. Probably ought to have waited to stick the second one on, but never mind. So we're coming through there. And then we'll just go down on the inside. going to do that on each of the points where I've put the holes just a few times, just to make sure that it sticks down. My needle getting away from me. So I'll probably go through 3 or 4 times just to make sure that they stay where I want them to go. So I'm going to go and do that off camera. Because again, it'd be boring to just sit and watch me doing that, but it's just to secure them down into place. Then once I've done that, I'll come back and we can carry on beading. Right, so I've got those in place now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill in these little gaps with some of these rondelles. I think they're probably about 4 or 5 millimetre. I think they're AB ones, but they're quite small. So I'm just going to take, come up first, where I'm going to go. And I'm just going to basically just fill in this gap with those. So it's just a case of taking one at a time and then knowing how much space you've got left to fill in. So see, those might actually just be a tad too big, so I might have to go back and use something smaller. Here in front of me, so I might actually use these ones and just, yeah, I think I'll just use these. These are just some AB seed beads, but I don't know the size of those, so to probably about 10 or 11, something like that. But then they're not as a consistent size, so they are good for when you're trying to fill in space. So then I'm just going to, with these being small, I'll take 2 at a time. Oh, it would help if I was threaded on. So have you take this bit out, please. And so I'm going to take 2 and just let them drop down. Just push them into where you need them to go. You can always go back and add more if there's a little bit of space that you've not filled in. And then I'm just going to come down and fill that in. Once it's a bit more firmer, at the minute you can see that it's just going back, so this is actually helpful for when you're doing this bit, so that you can get your needle in and out more easily. But it's just a case of just carrying on and filling in this gap. So I've got a tiny bit of a one here, so I'm going to go back a little and get it where I want it. There we go. So because these are probably the cheaper end of beads, I've got the option of finding one that's a little bit thinner than the other ones. So I'll just pull that down. And then that fills it in. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to fill in this gap and this one here, and then I'll come back and we can go around the outside. So as you can see, I've got that gap all filled in now on either side. So I'm going to use the beads that we're going to use filling this in just to go around the outside. Now all I'm going to be doing is the same as what we did when we put our first row down around our bezel. So I'm going to put in, might do 2 at a time with them being a little bit bigger, or maybe 3, we'll see. Anyway, so we're just going to go around the outside edge. Apologies for the fan blowing my stuff everywhere. And then just come down. And then come up in between them again. And then come out. And then just pull them tight, and then you can add your rest on. So I'm just going to do it around the curved edges here. you can see, I'm just going to give it a border around this piece. So I'm going to go do that and I'll be back. Before we move on to cutting the felt around it and backing the piece, I'm wanting to just put something in these little gaps here because I'm wanting to make the pendant into an eye shape. As you can see, that it's going that way, but there's going to be this little bit of a gap here once we cut round it. So I'm just taking some of the crystals that we've just used to go around the centre part and just to fill in that little hole. It's just so that you don't see the felt, and I'd rather them have something sparkly on than just filling it in with more seed beads. If you've not got crystals, just use your seed beads, just, you know, whatever you think's going to fit into it better, then that's what you use. So let's see if I can get this. So I'm wanting it to go sideways, so I'll come back up to a different angle. I apologise if you can hear noises in the background because my studio is very, very hot today, and I've got to have the fan on and I've got to have the doors open for me to be able to breathe. So I apologise if there's noises in the background that you can hear that are distracting. So I'll come back through now and I can bring it further up, closer to you know, the edge where I want it to be, so it fills that little gap in, so when we cut around it we're going to have a more fluid join. Might have to put some beads in here, but we'll see how it goes when we're putting the edging on. So I'm going to do it in the other three sections here and then I'll come back. Right, so I've got those put in to those little nooks there, so it's got more of that eye type shape that I'm wanting. Now, because I'm going to be going on to the border now, I'm needing to change the colour of my thread because this on the back of it, as you can see, it's rather unsightly. So you just need to tie off if you've got a different coloured thread. If not, you can keep going with what you've got on if you've got enough to be going on, but I've definitely not got enough to be finishing off the border like I want to do, so I'm just going to take this one off. So I like to stick it so it's further into the piece where the knot is. I can manage to bend it my needle enough. So I'm going to come up to there. There we go. Through. Snip it off. Put that to the side for a minute. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to trim it around the outside of it. Try not to catch any of your threads, but just try and get as close as you can without getting your threads. Just keep having a turn over just to make sure you're not going near any. Because you don't want to have to redo all that work that you've done already. To save it now. As you can see, there's this little bit here, so if you're wanting to fill that in, you can always fill it in with some of the, you know, the beads that we've done around here, those little gaps. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to cut out some cardboard for the back just to make it more rigid, because as you can see, it's a bit floppy with it being at the moment, so we need some cardboard to go on the inside of it. So I'm just taking some, this is just craft card that I've got out of my scrap box. I'm just folding it up because you want it to be quite thick so that it holds it enough. So yeah, got that. So I'm just going to take this and find a pencil. I'm just going to come around the So we've got a rough shape of our pendant, but then I'm just wanting to come on the inside of that, just so I'm leaving enough space for me to be able to get through the felt to do the edging. So we're just needing it to go like that. So I'm just going to stick these two pieces together so they're not sliding around as much. And you don't have to do this bit if you don't want to, but I just like to do it just to make sure that it stays together. It's just one less thing to have to try and deal with while you're trying to do all your backing and your beads and everything else. Doesn't matter, I can just trim little bits. Nobody's going to see this bit anyway, so it's only going to be you that knows what's going off underneath the felt of the backing. Glue on my nail in. So I'm going to leave that to there. So as I said, there's just these little bits here that I'm thinking I'm going to fill in with just some of these tiny little seams here, just like we filled in this little gap. So I'm just going to fill those in, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to show you how we attaching our back with the felt and putting an edging on. So I'll go and do that real quickly and I'll come back. The next bit we need to do is just to create our backing piece of felt. So all you've got to do again is just draw around the outside of it. And yes, I've got my Christmas pattern. And it's only June, but I don't care, it's Christmas all year round for me. So I apologise for the little bell sound. There we go. Santa can go away for a bit now. Right. And then we're just going to cut it out like we did the cardboard, but this time we're not making it any smaller, wanting to keep it the same size. Better to double check before you cut it off. That way. Yeah, there we go. So there, we've got our backing for it now, and then this will go at the back of here, and this will stop these two pieces from flopping around everywhere. Susan taught me this trick from Turtle Soup Beads, so again I'll link her into Patreon if you want to catch up with her, if you've been missing her since YouTube. So I'm just going to go there, and it'll go there, and then we're going to put our edging beads all the way around now. So I'm going to use some more of the gold ones that we used to create the bezel, just so that it brings that colour more to the outside. Because this cane's turned out a little bit darker once it's baked than what I was hoping, I'm trying to lighten up the colours around it, just so that you know, it doesn't all go dark. So that's what I'm trying to do anyway with the accent beads around it. And because my fan's going, he's pulled my needle off my desk. Right, there we go. So you just want to make sure that you've come up to the top layer. So I'll just come in between the beads where you've filled in if you've needed to. This is going to go here. Now the way I found it easier so I can describe it to you how I do the edging bits. So I'm working so I've got the back of the pendant facing me. So I'm just going to take a bead. Remember, I'm coming out from the top. Now I'm just going to go through the bottom layer, missing the cardboard, and then coming through the top layer. Okay, and then you don't want to be coming down through that hole, you want them to come up through the first hole at this side. So if you go through there and pull it up, that'll make it stand on its end. And then you just do this all the way around. So you're taking one more bead and then come up from the bottom to the top layer, making sure you miss that cardboard, because trying to get your needle through your cardboard is going to be very difficult. And then just come up from what I will call the back of the bead, because like this will be the front bit now, so it's facing away from you. So come up back through there, and then when you pull it tight it will make them stand on their end. So we're going to be doing this all the way around the edge, and that will fix the cardboard and the felt together, and then we can put our fringe on. So I'm going to do that all the way around there because that's going to take quite a while because it's a fairly big piece, and then we can get on with doing the fringe. I've got back round to the beginning again, so you can just about see if I'm... Right, so as you can see I've got back round to the beginning again. Turn it that way around, that's where I've been working. So I just need to connect these two seed beads together, so I'm just going to come from the front through to the back of that first seed bead that we put on. So now I'm going to do is I'm going to put some fringe along the bottom. So as you can see I'm nearer to this side than I am the other one, so I'm just going to work my way around to get to the end. So you can either go in and out of all the seed beads, or you can just go along the felt, whichever you feel most comfortable doing. Let's see where the needle will allow me to go actually. And trying to keep it, if you've got the same coloured thread as the backing that you use, and you're not really going to see all that much, but obviously if you're doing a different coloured thread you want to try and stay as close to, you know, the line of seed beads that you've put on. So just about there. I'm starting right on this point. I'm going to come down there and I'm going to come back up through this emblem here. So I'm going through the felt and back through that seed bead. Okay, and that's where I'm going to start. Now the fringe that I'm going to do is going to be all the same length all the way along. Simply because it's curved already. Now if it was a straight piece or just the circle on its own, I might do a longer piece in the middle and then graduate them down, but on this one, because it's curved, I just want to keep them all the same and it'll have that graduated shaping anyway. So I've just got a few beads here that I'm just going to pick from. Again, like what I said earlier, I'm trying to bring out some of that rainbow aspect, you know, that was in the original cane that I made. So I'm trying to just bring in as much colour as I can, obviously so it doesn't look too garish. And there's one bit that you can see what I'm getting out here. Now these are some like multicoloured beads that I've had in my stash for quite a while before I started buying seed beads by proper size and things like that, so they've not got, you know, sizes and makes and things like that on. So I can't give you exact sizes of them out, I'm afraid, but it's just a case of you playing around with what you've got and, you know, just seeing what works best for your piece. So get my thread again. So I'm going to start off with just some of these regular seed beads. Now, like I said, these are not the best ones in the world, but you can figure out the ones that are no good and just put them to the side. So let's go with 15 of these, I think. 4, 5, 6, 7, going with 15 to start with, and then I just bring them down onto the mat and lay it flat for what I want, to see if it's as long as I want it to be. Now that's probably not as long as I would like it, so add another 5. It's a little bit better for me, so I'm going to stick, so that's 20 that we're going with that one. So then I'm going to go with one of these. These are probably about 3mm, I'd say. Look, just looking at them. Zoom in a little bit so you can see better now. And then I'm going to go with one of these, and then I'm going to go with one of the larger ones for at the bottom and put that up. And then I'm going to take one of the seed beads again, but then come back up through all of those that we've just put on. Now if you've got any leaf beads, you can put those at the bottom here. If you've got some heavier crystals, you can put those at the bottom. Just use whatever you've got that will match your pendant that you've made so far. You don't have to stick with the colours I'm doing, because this is just simply showing a way to use the cane that I made in a video. So all the way back up, and then come back through that seed bead that we started with. Don't manage to get a knot, I think. Doesn't help having a fan fighting me all the time, you know, making my thread go where I don't want it to. There we go, that's better. So, got that laid down now. So, because we know these beads get bigger at the bottom, we need to leave a little bit of a gap so there's space for the next one to fall down to. So instead of going to just the seed bead just slap bang next to it, I think I'll probably go miss one and then go to the next one, so miss a bead and then go to the next one over. And the only way that you're going to know whether if this is absolutely right is, again, just by trial and error. So just put on at the same amount as before and then see whether if it looks crowded or not. Then if it is, you just move over another bead and see whether if that's any better. That's 5. My 20 seed beads. So, and as you can see now, because we've moved further down, these look like that they're going to be longer than what the last one was, but it's not. It's just because it's on a curve. So because we've got past that larger bead now, I know that those ones are going to fit perfectly when I put them on. So fingers crossed. There we go. And as you can see, it's going to have that graduated shaping round, and you don't have to remember to add any beads or miss any beads, just get fewer or whatever. With this one you can just do the same amount all the way around. And that's what I like about doing something that's curved like this. It's a bit of an easier fringe for you to start with. You're not having to try and gauge where you need to make, you know, one length shorter or longer on a pendant. Doing it like this, you're going to get that graduated shape in any way, so it'll get that look that you've done it, but you haven't. You've done an easier version of it. So let's come back up, and I will just move on 2 seed beads again, and then I will do that until I get around to the other side, and then that will be my fringe done. So let's pull this through, and I can lay it flat for you again. Try not to get a knot in it this time. And then don't pull it too tight, or else it's going to be like sticks on your pendant, so you just want to keep them nice and loose. So that's those so far, so I'm going to go and do that all the way around here, and I'll come back and show you when it's done. So I've got the pendant all finished just about, so you can see I've got some nice movement going in with the fringe, and it's hard to show you how it'll sway, but if I can try and do it at the angle when you're walking, it'll, you know, have some nice movement to it. So I've got to the other end, and as you can see there's not enough thread here for me to do any more on it, so I'm just going to tie up like I've done earlier. Now this is just to make sure that nothing's gonna come out, which shouldn't have done with the amount of times I've gone round beads and things, but like I say, it's always good having insurance. And then I'm just going to come back up through here, a bit close to where I'm going in. That's it. Pull it, and try not to get your fringe tangled in it. And that may happen a fair bit when you're doing fringe like this, so don't get too frustrated with yourself, because you'll get there in the end. So I've got that through, and let's get my scissors and snip it off. Now as you can see, I've already got some beads on my mat, and I'm going to start doing the stringing of the necklace. Now I've got some barrel beads and some lentil beads that I made with the scraps from the cane that I used to make the focal and the boomerang beads. Now you don't have to use those, that's totally up to you. These are just some bits that have been left over. I've chopped them up and then put them into their respective shapes. Sorry, I'm trying to get my needle thread. And then these ones are just some gold polymer clay and rolled into a tiny ball, and then I've dusted them with some gold mica powder, and that's just giving it that metallic look. And then I just coated them with some it was either Pledge Revive it, or it was a Femo's own glaze in a tiny little bottle. I can't remember which one it was that I did these ones in. These ones I've left matte, and I've just got some crystals here as well. I might decide to put some other ones in. So I made some other rainbow beads a while ago, and these are a bit brighter, so I'm wondering whether if they might actually just be a bit too bright for it. So we'll see as we're going on anyway. Knocking crystals everywhere. So just use whatever you've got, what you think's gonna go well with the piece. If you're doing a rainbow one like what I've done, then you can get things that have just got variegated colours, or just the block colours of, you know, the rainbow cane, if you wanted to do that. I have got some of those, so but if I don't like how these ones look, then I can always get those ones out. Just trying to put a knot in, but it doesn't want to do it for me today. There we go, finally. So I've got a marguerite bead here, a bit more, and I'm just going, in fact I need some seed beads as well, because they're going to be our stopper. Now I went and cut the thread off like a numpty before and cutting it before I was ready. Usually I leave it on the spool, and then I've got it already tied on for if I'm needing any more thread. But the way that I'm going to do this one is I'm going to do stringing of this side first, and then if I've got enough thread left over I'll go across, but if not I'll simply just start at this side and repeat the pattern that's here. So just going to, let's put a few seed beads there, so let's put 5, 6, 7, 8, we'll do that. So I've got 8 of the gold seed beads that we used for the bezel. And then I'm just going to pick up another one. I'm going to come back down through here. Now thinking about it, I didn't actually need to put that knot in the end of it. This is what I get for cutting my thread off beforehand. I get all confused myself. Right, so I'm going to push those up, and then I'm going to come back down those beads that we've already put on. Wedges for my twitching hands. It can be a rather pain in the bum, especially when I'm trying to bead, especially on one camera. So now I'm just going to tie a knot here, just so that these don't come off. So this is why I didn't need the knot, so I can actually cut that bit off. But usually my spool would be attached to this part, and then I'd leave it like this, and then I wrap a little plastic hairband around it, and then when I've run out of thread I can simply just pull some more off of this and then travel across. Now if I were just doing a straight string piece, then you know, that's absolutely fine, but with this one it probably will work out better me doing each side separately. So I've got those beads there, so let's start with some of these gold ones. So if we do 2 gold and a stone, let's go with a barrel, 1 stone, 2 gold, let's see what that looks like. So I'm going to stick with that. So now, rather than having 4 of the beads together, I'll just go with another crystal, barrel bead, and then 2 more, the gold ones. Now I've only got 10 of these barrel beads, so let's see. I have to see how many. I'm going to have 5 for each side, how long that's actually going to be, so that's not going to be very long at all really, so I'll have to rethink that one. So what we could do is, rather than having just barrel beads on this part, we could actually put the lentils in between them. So if we come back out of that, and I'll just drop them, but never mind, I'll get it. So we'll go with that one, and then we'll have a lentil. Around the hole. There we go. And put the 2 gold ones back on. So I'll alternate between barrel and lentil beads, so I'm going to do that, and I'm going to use 5 of each on each side. So I'm going to string that bit, and then I'll come back and show you how I attach it. Right, so I've got my string of beads all done, and that comes to about 13.5 inches, so which is fine for me. If you don't want it as long as that each side of it, just make it shorter if that's what you wanted. So I'm going to attach this now to my pendant. So I'm going to go down through the seed bead where the last fringe is put in. I'm coming through that way. And then I'm going to just to know, it might be easier for me to show you. And come up through the one next to it, so that will reinforce thread. Whoop. Sticking to the bracket. And then we'll come back up through our string. So all I'm going to do now is come all the way back up here. Now eventually I'm going to be putting some knots through this, but because this is only the second pass through, I'm not going to be putting any yet because I don't want to make it too hard to get through any of the beads just yet, because I'm wanting to get through them at least another 2 times. So let's see how they go. Depending on how big the holes are on your beads, if you've made your own polymer beads, it'll be you know, how many times you get through them for each pass, but I generally like to get through 3 or 4 times through them, and then if I've got any thread left over just hanging at the end, I like to just put some extra knots in, you know, further round if I can get my needle through. If you can't get your needle through, you can just use a pair of pliers or something just to help pull them through. So that's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to go back up to the other end and then I'll come and show you what I'm going to do then. I'm back up at the toggle end, and what I'm going to do is, rather than going up this strand, I'm going to create another strand at the side bit. So I'll take another 8 seed beads. 6, 7, 8. And then I'm going to come back through the marguerite. Seed bead, and then I'm going to come back down that one. I'm doing it this way simply so that I've got extra space to be able to pass through to use up all the thread that I've got, because I just like to, like I've been saying, I like to get through them as many times as I can, so I know that the piece isn't going to fall apart on me first time it gets worn. So I like just to have that reassurance, and then you can actually just attach either side of the, you know, the strand here. Once we've finished, you can actually come back through that. I think we've actually gone through the wrong one there. So we've already gone through that one, so we'll come back down that one we've just put on. You don't have to do this, this is just what I like to do because it's going to be quite a heavy piece. I just want to put this in so I've got the added security bit there. And then so I'm back at where we initially started, so I'm just going to tie it up there. So I'll just normal that. And then I'm going to be coming back down here, so all the way along the string, and then I'm going to come back down and reinforce where we've gone through, where we've attached it to the pendant, and then I'm going to be going back up and down probably 3 or 4 times, and that's all I'm going to be doing. If you want to add some extra fringe to this, this is when you come and do it as you're coming back down and you're threading through, like we've done on the pendant fringing. If you want to add some more there, feel free, add it to it. Me personally, I'm just leaving it as it is because to me it's already, you know, like a more heavy piece. I don't want to add too much to it, but if you like having, you know, fringe all the way down, there's nothing wrong with it. I think it all looks gorgeous. It's just, I think because this has got quite a bit of a pendant on it, the other ones that I've just done a straight string. So I'm going to go backwards and forwards and do this, and then once I've done that, I'm going to come back to this side, and then we can carry on and do the clasp side. I've got back up to the toggle, and I'm running out of thread here, but I just wanted to show you what I meant by connecting the 2 sides of it. So if you come up through one side, and then instead of going up the next one on the side that you're on, you go up the next one on the opposite side. And what you're going to be doing is you're basically going to be zigzagging through the beads. And then just go up through, so it'll be through the third one this time. Because these are the fiddliest beads, so trying to do it, especially when you're trying to do it in the air, it can get a little bit awkward. But hopefully you've not got the twitchy thing like I have, and you can get it through easier. Now, because I've passed through them a few times now, it is getting harder to go through them, but still can do it. And then we just do that going all the way up until we get to the top of the rows. So this will pull them together as well as reinforce them, and just give that added strength, because this part of the necklace will get a fair bit of wear on it, because obviously that's where you're going to be moving it to fasten the necklace. So you want to make sure that you've got a lot of good support in there. So that's why I say if you can get through it as many times as you can, then you're just going to have that added strength to it. So right, I've come on to the last one. I'm going to go up through Marguerite. Now I know I'm not going to be able to get back up there for a fourth time, so this will be the last one, but each time you do this, it can come back up and just put either a new stopper bead on, or you can just go through one that's already there. I just like to put another one in, so it fills that bit in. And then when you've come back down, then go through the opposite way, so come down the opposite side to where you went at that time, and then just cross over the other side, and then that's just all you're doing. And then with the remainder of the thread, I will work down through the string part, and I will just put knots on regular intervals, so it's just going to make sure that if it gets tugged on, it's not going to snap easy. So I'm up to the bottom of that again now, and then I'm just going to put another knot. Down to the first barrel bead, and then I'm just going to, I find it easier if I do it this way. I just hold the beads so that it's such angle that it exposes the thread. So I go underneath, then that will create that loop. I like to go through as once to start with, but then when it becomes smaller I go through again. Do it when it's larger, you've got a chance of knotting at the end of a loop, and then you've got to pull it all the way back through, but I've found that doing it that way, there's less chance of that happening. Well, that's what I found for myself anyway. You might find a different way of doing it, but that's just how I like to do it. So as you can see, it's getting harder for me to pull my needle through it, so I know this is going to be my last pass through, but I know that I've got plenty of support going through there. So last one. So again, just bend the 2 beads that you're wanting to create your knot round, then just go under. Oh, I think I've not gone at the right angle there. So try again. Underneath, pull it through, and then just pull it until it's a bit smaller, and then back through it again, and pull it tight, and then carry on. So I'm going to do that as much as I can with the thread that I've got left, and then I will come back and do the other side. So I'm across the other side now, and I've tied on like I've done before, and just hiding that knot underneath the other part where I pinned it. So I'm going to come, I've got my thread, so it's in between the boomerang bead and the felt. So I'm going to come through the seed bead that the first piece of fringe is hanging from, like we did at the other side. So instead of starting at like the end of the strand, or string, whatever you want to call it, we're starting at the opposite end of it. So I've come up through there, and all I'm going to do now is just mirror this pattern that I've done all the way along the end. So this one, I've got my 2 gold beads, my crystal, and then I've got my lentil bead, and then we're just going to copy that all the way up, and then once we've got to the end of that, that is where we're going to do our hoop as that for our clasp. Now, I find it a lot easier if I can keep my piece flat rather than having to keep lifting it up. When you're lifting it up to the camera, it tends to get tangled and things, so I'll find it easier if I can lay it resting, and then I just put the beads onto my needle, and then I slide them down to where I want to go. So as you can see, I've got it so that they should be just about level going across each other, so I won't get confused as to what I'm going to be doing. It's not on the screen, sorry about that guys. So I've got it laid out flat so you can see the pattern that you're doing. So I've just done that one, so the next one will just be crystal, 2 gold, and then another crystal, and then this time it's barrel bead. So I'll go and get up to the end of the pattern, I'll come back and we'll do a loop. I just wanted to show you the full strand and the length of it. So it has got quite a good bit of length, but like I said earlier, if you want it to be shorter, just don't put as much on as what I have. I like them to just hang a little bit lower, you know, so but it's just personal preference really. So I'll zoom back in now and we'll get to the clasp. I'll pick my needle up again. So I finished off with the 2 gold beads like I've got at the other end. There we go. So now we're just going to be creating a loop for our marguerite bead to go through. So this is just going to be you putting them on, trying it, if there's too many or you need more, come back out and just trying again. So it's basically a trial and error sort of thing, so but there's no fixed number because depending on what you're using as your toggle part will depend on how many seed beads you need to put on. So you just want to play around with it a bit. Now that's obviously not going to create too big of a loop, and marguerite beads bigger than that, so put some more on. I'll try and do an even numbers of 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 24, 13, even numbers will be easier for when we're doing the part that will be going on to next once we've got the actual loop. So if you're adding or taking any away, try and do it in multiples of 2, and it'll make the next step easier. But you can work it without it, it's just I find it easier if I've got it in the even numbers. So let's do them up. Because if you look, this is the size of my toggle, and then when it comes back round, you can just sort of lay it there. That's not going to be the right size hole for my grate to go through. Now these are the gold, what size were they in? Size 10? Yeah, these were 10 seed beads. Number 10, not 10. There's a lot more than 10 in there, there's loads. So here we got there. Okay. So rather than you having to just keep stringing through, if you can just sort of lay it through there. And then whether if you can put your marguerite on top there, whether if you think it's going to fit through there. So I think I've got to work around about where it should be. So now I'm going to do a better test a bit. I'm coming back through these first 3 beads. I'm just going to pull them tight. And then when I'm doing this bit, I'm just pulling that way. Because it's not knotted, it's going to be fairly loose. So I'm having to hold the thread in my finger so that I can keep it taut. Because if you don't, then you're not going to get a true measure of whether marguerite's going to go through. So I've got my loop there, and that easily goes through, and then it pulls tight, so we've got the perfect amount of beads there. So now I'm going to go back down the same way that we did on the other side. I'm just going to go all the way back down until I get to the other end, reinforcing going through the seed beads near where the fringe is, and then I'm going to come back up to the loop again, and then we're going to do the next stage of the loop. I'm back up at the loop, and I've just come up through the first seed bead on one side, and then I'm just going to take 3 of my seed beads, and then I'm going to go back in where the gap is, where I'm just trying to hide it up for you. So I'm going to go back through where my thread's coming out, but then I'm going to go through the next, so I'm skipping the next seed bead, and I'm going to come out through the next one on. So when you pull that tight, you're going to get your 3 little beads sort of going in a bit of a triangular shape when you pull them. See if we can, as I'm holding it up, it's wanting to fall down, so they will basically stand up in a triangle sort of shape. You can see that. I'm hoping that's not gone blurred, but that's done that. So you're going up 1 bead, putting 3 on, and then going back through the same one that you've come out of, and then missing a bead, and then going through the next one. So I'll show you again. So I've missed a bead, and I've gone on to the next one, taking 3 more seed beads, and then doing the same thing. So I'm going back through the one where it's come out, missing a bead, and I'm coming up through the next one. Just see if I can. Sorry about that, I'm trying to make sure that I'm focused on there, that's better. I'm sorry if it was blurred before. So yeah, I've got my 3 beads put on, so I'm going back through where I've come out of, and I'm going up 2 more beads, so I'm missing the next one, I'm coming out the one afterwards, and then when you pull them, they land in a triangular form. To get it, you can see it's rather fiddly. Trying to do it up in the air, it's not the easiest of things. So when it goes taut, go. It'll go in that little triangle sort of shape, and then on the next round we'll fill in those little gaps. So I'm going to do that round the rest of the loop. So I've gone all the way around now. It looks a bit of a mess at the moment. Don't worry, once we go back through it will straighten it all up. So I've just come down a few beads and I'm going to tie a knot like I've shown you before, and this is so that I can go straight back up to the clasp without having to go all the way down to the bottom and then circle back up on myself. So on through there, back up. Now we need to get to the beginning of our sets of 3, so come back through that first bead that we worked on, and then through first 2 of the first set of 3, to come through. There we go. Okay, so now we're at the top of our first set of 3, and then we're just going to take one seed bead and we're going to go through the next middle one on the next set of 3, and this will connect them and it'll give you a much more sturdier loop. You can just do a regular loop, but I just like to do it like this just so that it straightens it out, plus it makes it a little bit easier for when you're fastening your necklace. Carry on all the way around. This bit goes fairly quickly because you're not actually having to prise apart beads like you are when you're trying to fill them in. You're just basically connecting the ones that are sticking up. So as you can see, it's making it thicker, so it's sturdier than what just a single loop would be. You could actually go around it again once you've done this and do this as an edging if you wanted to make the outside of it look even fancier, but I just leave it as I'm doing now. Hoping that you can hear me alright, because I've got the door open again and the fan on because it's another warm day, and I haven't got aircon yet like I've said before, and I would bake if I didn't. I tried filming last year during the heat wave that we had, and it was unbearable. I couldn't feel my clothes getting soaked from my sweating, so I thought I'm not going to boil myself this year. So I'll be glad when I've actually got the air conditioning. So I'm nearly all the way back round. This is probably the quickest part of it, really. Just got to keep a firm hold of your loop. You can get easily tangled with this part. If you keep hold of the loop in between your fingers, then it's giving it less space for it to spin around. And I say from experience, from getting it tangled very many times and through a lot of swearing, and in my strong Yorkshire accent, not the one that I use on here, and yet I've got frustrated with it, so I know that it can be frustrating trying to do it, but the more you do it, the easier it'll become, sort of like that muscle memory type theory. I think, yeah, I'm at the last one now. See, I've got to come up there, and then I'm going to come back down through the last one of that trio, then back down through the beads. Then the only thing left to do is just to go back down the strand and put some knots in. So you don't need to watch me doing that, so I'll go off camera and do that, and we'll look at the finished piece. So all finished now, and I'm really pleased with how it's come out. I managed to bring out some of the colours from the paradox cane that I made. As you can see, the beads baked a little bit darker than I was anticipating, but I think I've managed to draw it out, so it's brought the colour out of it as well, using all these different multicoloured beads. So I'm pleased with how it's come out, so I hope you've enjoyed watching me putting it together. Now, before I did this one, I did two other ones, and I call them my all seeing eye pendants. I'll show you the other ones that I made. Now, these ones are using the original paradox cane that I mentioned to you that I watched from Motley Woods, and she uses a sort of a sea green and a purple, and I followed that colourway, and as you can see, it's gorgeous colours together. I really liked it, and I liked it that much. I did another one but in the exact same colours but a different way, but I still come with my all seeing eye necklaces, because as you can see, it looks like an eye, the piece that's in the centre, and I used some ball beads on here and some of the crystals like we've used on the other one, and then the fringe is a lot more sparkly than the rainbow one that we've just done, as you can see. And this is using some bugle beads as well, rather than using seed beads for that initial drop of the fringe. And then the other one that I made, I used some pod beads that I learned how to make from Susan at Turtle Soup Beads, and I also put some little flower beads on around the eye, because the actual pendant part in the middle wasn't as big. And I've done a double fringe on this one, so in between the fringe like we've just done this one, and we've missed a bead in between, on this one I've just gone back into those gaps and I've done a shorter fringe, so it's got a more fuller look. So that's another option for you to do, but I just really like how purple and green work together. I am going to struggle you know, letting these ones go if I get somebody who wants to buy them, but that's what we make us work for, isn't it? Either for ourselves or work for us just to be able to sell, to buy some more supplies. So there's lots of different ways that you can do this, but that's what I just wanted to show you. You don't have to do the pendant exactly as I've shown you how to do today. You know, they're all just in a different way. I mean, this one's got more curves around the pendant going this way, whereas these ones have rounded them out. Those two of them are more the similar set. This is probably the biggest of the pendants, but you know, I know there's people that like really chunky jewellery, and then there's some that don't. So just make it to whatever you're wanting your piece to look like. So I hope you've enjoyed that. If you've got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll answer them as best I can. And if you've liked the video, you could give me a thumbs up, that'd be appreciated. And if you've not subscribed, if you consider subscribing, that'd be appreciated too. So thanks for watching, I'll see you next time. Bye.